Man, that ballroom was buzzing, folks chatting up a storm, glasses clinking all around, and a smooth jazz band humming away in the corner. I've never been big on work parties, but this one felt different, you know. Word was, promotions were getting handed out, and after busting my tail for years under my boss, Marcus, and his creepy brother, Brian, I had a gut feeling my moment had finally come. My wife, Lauren, was by my side, looking like $1,000,000 in this dark green dress that hugged her curves just right, turning heads left and right. I gotta admit, I was kinda proud, showing her off like that. Things had been off with her lately, late nights out with her friends, quiet dinners where we barely talked, but I figured it was just stress piling up. I hoped tonight might spark something between us again, and for a bit, it really seemed like it could. Her laugh echoed through the room, her smile felt real, and the way she held onto my arm made me feel like I was the only guy that mattered. Then, like a cheap wine glass, that feeling smashed to bits. Marcus, all slick and charming as usual, came strutting over with this greasy grin plastered on his face. His tux was crisp, but something about him tonight just oozed sleaze. Brian was lurking close by, nursing his bourbon and eyeing me like I was prey. "David, buddy." Marcus called out, his voice all fake and syrupy. "You enjoying yourself or what?" "Yeah, I'm good," I shot back, trying to hide how much he got under my skin. Marcus always had this knack for making me uneasy, even when he was playing nice. "Glad to hear it," he said, slapping my shoulder hard enough to make a point. "Hey, you got a sec? There's something you need to check out." I paused, glancing over at Lauren, who was deep in conversation with some coworkers. Her laugh carried over, but something about her seemed tense, her posture too rigid, her gestures too controlled. "What's this about?" I asked, my guard up. Marcus shared a quick glance with Brian, who gave a smug little smirk over his glass. "Oh, just a little something that'll open your eyes," Marcus said. They steered me toward a quieter spot by these huge windows with a view of the city skyline. My stomach started twisting as Marcus fished out his phone, that smirk of his growing wider as he tapped the screen. He held it up for me to see, and at first, my brain couldn't make sense of it. The video was shadowy, the figures fuzzy, but then it hit me like a freight train. The woman in it, her hair, her shape, her voice, was Lauren, no question. She was on her knees, her green dress hiked up around her waist, her mouth on Marcus while Brian was behind her, going at it with a viciousness that turned my stomach. The sound was off, but I didn't need to hear it to feel the gut punch of that filthy, degrading scene. "She belongs to us," Marcus said, his voice low and cocky. "Check out how many Johnsons she can take at once." I didn't stop to think. I didn't care about consequences. My fist flew before I could blink, smashing into Marcus's smug face with a crack that echoed like a gunshot. Teeth went flying, blood splattered, and Marcus dropped like a sack of bricks. The whole room froze. People gasped, jaws dropped. Brian stumbled back, eyes wide, his drink slipping from his hand and shattering on the floor. "You've lost it," Brian yelled, but I wasn't anywhere near done. "You think you can make a fool of me?" I snarled, looming over Marcus as he clutched his busted mouth. "You thought I wouldn't figure it out?" My voice boomed, slicing through the stunned hush of the crowd. Every pair of eyes was glued to me, but I didn't give a damn. They had no clue what I knew. They didn't know about the card I was holding close to my chest. As Marcus lay there whining on the floor and Brian was yelling for security, I straightened my tie, gearing up to pull off something nobody in that room would ever forget. Marcus's pathetic, blood-soaked groans only stoked the fire raging in my chest. Brian, his face all twisted up with fury, came at me like a guy who's used to calling the shots. He threw a wild punch, but I was ready for it. Years of pent-up anger and betrayal pumped through me like a shot of pure adrenaline. I dodged to the side, snagged his wrist as it flew by, and twisted it hard, heard a nasty crack that made him yelp like a kicked puppy. He stumbled back, crashing into the crowd, clutching his arm. "Call security," someone hollered, but I wasn't about to let them stop me. Lauren was rushing over now, her face white as a ghost, my name half-formed on her lips. "David, please, stop," she begged, but her voice just sharpened the knife of my anger. Brian, not done yet, grabbed a glass off a nearby table with his good hand and chucked it at me. It smashed against the wall, missing me by a mile. Before he could regroup, I was on him, yanking him by his fancy suit lapels and slamming my knee into his stomach. He let out a wheezy gasp, all the air knocked out of him, and I let him flop to the floor next to his brother. "This is just the beginning," I growled, towering over the two of them, my fists balled up, knuckles stinging from smashing Marcus's face. The room was a madhouse now, folks yelling, some trying to step in, others backing off quick. Security guards were shoving through the crowd, their black uniforms parting the sea of wide-eyed partygoers, but I was nowhere near finished. "You think you can wreck my life, my marriage, and just stroll away?" I snapped, my voice bouncing off the shiny marble floors. I turned to Lauren, who'd frozen a few steps away, her hands shaking like leaves. "You knew, Lauren. I trusted you with everything, and you tossed it all for these clowns." Her face fell apart, tears streaming down, but I couldn't tell if she was guilty or just scared. She tried to say something, but I shut her down cold. "Don't bother," I said, my voice like ice. "Your excuses are worthless to me now." Marcus, still sprawled out, coughed and sputtered, blood dripping from his mouth as he tried to talk. You're done for," he slurred, spitting out a tooth onto the floor. "You'll never get a job in this city again." That got a laugh out of me, a low, bitter chuckle that hushed the room all over again. "You think I need your blessing?" I shot back, staring him down. "I've been propping up this company for years, and you both know it better than anyone." Marcus's eyes tightened, but I caught a flash of fear in them, a crack in his usual cocky front. Brian, cradling his busted wrist, didn't look like some hotshot executive anymore, just a scared kid in a grown man's suit. The security guards finally reached me, two big guys trying to grab my arms, but I wasn't ready to quit. I twisted out of their grip, quick as anything, grabbed one by his collar, and used his own momentum to slam him into the other. They hit the deck in a tangled heap, swearing as they scrambled to get up. "You think I showed up here empty-handed?" I said, my voice steady and sharp. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small black USB drive, holding it up for the whole room to see. "This little thing," I said, my words cutting through the stunned quiet, "has it all. Every crooked deal, every shady contract, every dirty little secret these two have tried to bury. I've been keeping tabs for years, and now it's all going public." Brian's face went pale as a corpse. "You're full of it," he stammered, but his voice was shaky, like he wasn't so sure. "Test me," I growled. "The files are already sitting on a secure server. One click, and your whole world comes crashing down." The room exploded into chaos again, people whispering and gasping like a swarm of bees. Brian dragged himself to his feet, his broken wrist dangling uselessly. "You don't get it," he hissed. "You'll take yourself down with us." "Maybe so," I said, slipping the USB back into my pocket, "but I'm dragging you both down with me." Marcus, still sprawled on the floor, grabbed at a table's edge, trying to haul himself up, blood dripping from his busted lip. "You don't have the guts," he muttered, his voice slurred and weak. "We'll crush you." I crouched down, getting right in his face, close enough to smell the coppery tang of his blood. "You already broke me," I hissed, my words sharp and bitter. "Now it's my chance to return the favor." Before the security guards could make another grab for me, I spun around and headed for the exit. The crowd split like I was Moses parting the sea, their faces a mix of shock, fear, and maybe a hint of respect. Lauren's voice cracked behind me, desperate, calling my name, but I kept walking. This wasn't close to being over, not by a long shot. The night stretched on forever as I peeled out of the hotel's glitzy parking lot, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Lauren's tear-soaked face kept flashing in my head, but it didn't soften me, it just poured fuel on the fire burning in my gut. I'd given her everything, my heart, my trust, my whole damn life, and she'd thrown it in the dirt. And Marcus and Brian. They thought I was just some chump they could play. Tonight, I'd show them what happens when you back a guy into a corner. I was headed to a plain-looking building on the outskirts of town, far from the city's bright lights and fake glamour. Waiting for me there was the linchpin of my plan, Tyler, an old buddy with a very particular set of skills. He didn't come cheap, and he sure as hell wasn't on the right side of the law, but the guy was a wizard. I stepped into his dimly lit setup, the low buzz of computer servers filling the air. Tyler, a lean dude with a smirk that never quit, glanced up from his wall of monitors. "Man, you look like you got run over," he said, eyeing the bruises blooming on my knuckles. "Rough night," I shot back, tossing the USB onto his desk. "But I'm just warming up." "How fast can you make this go full apocalypse?" Tyler cocked an eyebrow but didn't press for details. He plugged the drive into his rig, his fingers dancing over the keyboard like a pianist on speed. "Who's the target?" "Marcus and Brian Johnson. Their company, their money, their whole damn world. Torch it all." He gave a low whistle, scanning the files. "This is some serious ammo. Fraud, embezzlement, secret offshore accounts, this could have the SEC, IRS, and FBI knocking by breakfast." "Perfect," I said, leaning over the desk, my voice hard. "But I want more than that. I want them humiliated, broken, feeling every ounce of the pain they put me through." Tyler's grin spread wider. "You're preaching to the choir, man." In just a few hours, the first blow landed. Tyler cracked into the company's servers, unleashing a tidal wave of damning documents to every big news outlet, emails laying out their bribery deals, bank records showing tax dodges, even steamy private messages between Marcus and some big-shot clients, the kind of dirt that buries reputations for good. But I wasn't stopping there. Tyler wormed into their personal accounts, siphoning off their hidden offshore millions and funneling it all to anonymous charities. Poof, millions gone, leaving Marcus and Brian with nothing but pocket change in their legit accounts. By sunrise, the internet was on fire. Hashtag Johnson Brothers scandal was blowing up worldwide. Clips started popping up of employees spilling about years of toxic workplace crap, painting a grim picture of the rotten empire those two had built. Reporters swarmed their fancy corporate headquarters, cameras flashing as shell-shocked execs scrambled to save their crumbling image. The icing on the cake. Tyler had dug into Marcus's personal life and hit gold. Turns out, his wife of 20 years wasn't just clueless, she was pissed. I made damn sure she got a full report of Marcus's sleazy hookups with Lauren, complete with the same disgusting video he'd waved in my face. Divorce papers were probably the least of his problems now. By lunchtime, the damage was unreal, like a wrecking ball had smashed through everything. The company's stock tanked hard, wiping out billions in value for shareholders overnight. Federal agents stormed their offices, carting off boxes of documents and computers like they were raiding a crime scene. Marcus and Brian vanished. Their fancy mansion sat empty, and whispers were flying about where they'd run off to. Then there was Lauren. I saved dealing with her for last. I rolled up to our house that afternoon, and there she was, waiting for me, her eyes puffy and red from crying. She was pacing the living room, gripping her phone like it was the only thing keeping her together. "David," she said, darting toward me the second I walked in, "please, can we just talk?" "Really?" I said, my voice colder than a winter wind, brushing past her. "I screwed up," she sobbed, grabbing at my arm. "I was dumb, I was weak, but I love you, David. I love what we had. Please, let's work through this." I pulled my arm away, my face hard as stone. "You love me? Love us? That's a good one, coming from someone who threw it all away for a couple of sleazy power trips." Her face collapsed, but I wasn't slowing down. "This wasn't just cheating, Lauren. You stabbed me in the back in the ugliest way possible. You helped them make a fool of me. Did you all have a good laugh after? Was this some sick plan you cooked up together? No, she wailed, dropping to her knees. It wasn't like that. They pushed me, threatened me. I didn't know how to handle it. Save the sob story, I snapped. You had options, and you picked yours. Now I'm picking mine. I reached into my jacket, pulled out an envelope, and dropped it on the coffee table with a soft thud. Divorce papers. She stared at them, her cries choking her words. I hope they were worth it, I said, my voice sharp as a blade, 'cause they're all you've got left. Before she could say another word, I turned and walked out, leaving her sobbing on the floor. Stepping into the sunlight, I felt something I hadn't in forever, freedom. The Johnson brothers were toast, Lauren was out of my life, and I'd finally cut loose from the lies and betrayal that had been choking me. They thought I was nothing, but now the world would know my name, and theirs, for all the worst reasons. The next morning, after my life had blown up, the city felt different, like it was sharper, or maybe I'd just burned enough of my past to light up the whole skyline. The news was non-stop, tearing into Marcus and Brian like a pack of wolves. It was the kind of media circus you only see once in a blue moon. Feds dragged them out of some rundown motel just hours after I'd dropped an anonymous tip about where they were hiding. They looked pathetic, worn out, in wrinkled suits, their faces puffy with fear and exhaustion. The cameras ate it up, Brian snarling at reporters, his face twisted, while Marcus, bruised and missing teeth, tried to duck behind his coat. It was pure gold. I watched it all go down from a quiet little cafe, sipping black coffee as the world ripped them to shreds. Tyler had called earlier, cracking up at how massive the fallout was. The SEC had locked down their assets, the IRS slapped liens on everything, and all their high-roller buddies had ghosted them. They were on their own now, sinking in the same corrupt muck they'd been swimming in for years. But the real kicker? It wasn't over yet. When Tyler handed me the final piece of his digging, even I was floored. It was almost too perfect, like justice had written me a love letter. Marcus and Brian weren't just greedy crooks, they were killers. Tucked away in a hidden file was proof of a dirty deal gone wrong, one that ended with a whistleblower's death, covered up with layers of sneaky excuses. I wasn't here for half-assed revenge. That file went straight to the FBI. Those two thought they were untouchable, but now they were staring down charges way beyond losing their money, conspiracy, manslaughter, maybe decades behind bars if they got off easy. Legal justice wasn't enough for me, I wanted their legacy, every single thing they'd ever built, to be poisoned forever. Later that day, I found myself standing outside their fancy headquarters. The place, once a symbol of their power, was now a hollow shell, its shiny glass walls mirroring the emptiness inside. A crowd of protesters had gathered out front, waving signs and yelling about corporate greed. A couple of ex-employees spotted me and gave me quiet nods of gratitude. They didn't know the full story, but it didn't matter. Stepping inside, the air felt heavy, like the quiet after a hurricane. The receptionist's desk sat empty, papers strewn across the floor like confetti from a ruined party. My boots echoed through the deserted halls as I made my way past it. Tyler had hooked me up with access to their private office, and there was something almost poetic about me being the one to walk through those doors and land the final punch. Marcus's office was just as I remembered, sterile, soulless, dripping with over-the-top wealth. His big mahogany desk was littered with documents and gaudy knickknacks that screamed money, but it was the framed photo on the wall that stopped me cold, a shot of Marcus and Brian, shoulder to shoulder, grinning like kings in front of the empire they'd built. Their smug faces churned my gut. I pulled a lighter from my pocket, flicking it open with a sharp click that felt like a promise. The little flame flickered in my hand, small but fierce, as I glared at the picture. "This is how your kingdom falls," I muttered, tossing the lighter onto the desk. The flames caught fast, gobbling up the papers and swallowing the photo in a hungry burst of orange. I stood there, watching the fire chew through their world, the heat growing thick until the smoke started to choke the air. Alarms screamed, sprinklers kicked on with a hiss, but it didn't matter. By the time the fire trucks rolled up, the damage would be permanent. That night, I got back to my apartment, my safe haven. Lauren had blown up my phone with a dozen calls, leaving voicemails that swung between sobbing apologies and frantic begging. I deleted them without even listening. She'd made her choices, now she could live with them. But as I sat there in the dark, something surprising hit me: peace. That heavy weight I'd been carrying for months was gone, replaced by a calm, clear feeling. I'd lost it all, my wife, my job, the life I thought I wanted, but somehow, in the wreckage, I'd found myself. The Johnson brothers were done for. Lauren was out of my life, and for the first time in years, I felt truly free. Tomorrow, the world would keep spinning. The headlines would die down, the public's outrage would fade, and folks would move on to the next big story. But Marcus, Brian, and Lauren, they'd never shake what I'd done to them. And neither would I. The weeks after that were a blur of chaos. Every time I flipped on the TV or checked my phone, there was some new bombshell about the Johnson brothers' epic crash and burn. Their empire, once bulletproof, was now a pile of rubble. Their faces were all over every news channel, no longer icons of success but poster boys for greed and arrogance. They tried to push back, naturally. Their slick, overpaid lawyers scrambled to stall the inevitable, filing motions and holding press conferences to swear they were innocent, but the proof was ironclad: the shady deals, the secret offshore accounts, the whistleblower's death. It was all laid bare, a tidal wave they couldn't outrun. Then came the arrests. The footage was pure gold: FBI agents marching the brothers out of the courtroom in handcuffs, their tailored suits creased and soaked with sweat. Brian was yelling at the cameras, his face contorted with rage, while Marcus just shuffled along, head down, his bruised, toothless mouth too swollen to even talk. It wasn't just justice, it was total destruction that I was done watching the Johnson brothers' slow-motion downfall. My part in their ruin was finished. Lauren kept trying to worm her way back in, desperate to talk. She sent bouquets, scribbled heartfelt letters, even showed up at my apartment one rainy night. I left her out there, her mascara streaking down her face as she banged on the door, pleading for me to open it. I didn't budge. The divorce wrapped up quicker than I thought, thanks to Tyler working his magic with some shady contacts. Lauren walked away with nothing: no house, no cash, no pity. That prenup I'd signed years back, thinking it was just a formality, ended up being my knockout punch. Word got around that she tried crawling back to her old friends, the ones she'd supposedly been with during those late nights when she was so distant, but they shut her out cold after the scandal hit. Her betrayal had turned her into a social outcast, shunned by the crowd she used to chase. Good. Let her stew in the mess she made. Months went by, and life started to feel almost normal again. I picked up and moved to a new city, taking on consulting gigs far from the corporate nightmare Marcus and Brian had run. It wasn't flashy work, but it was real, and for the first time in forever, I felt like I was building something worth having. Tyler would call now and then, still grinning about the havoc we'd caused. "You know," he said one time, "if you'd played it different, you could have pocketed a slice of their fortune." I didn't care about their money, I told him. I wanted to see their world go up in flames. He chuckled. "Well, you nailed it, man." One night, I was out on the balcony of my new, no-frills apartment, sipping whiskey and staring at the city's twinkling lights. I thought back on everything: the hurt, the betrayal, the raw anger that had driven me. It was still there, tucked deep inside, but something else had settled in too: peace. Marcus and Brian were rotting in a cell, their empire torn to pieces. Lauren was just a bitter memory, a shadow from a life I'd left behind. And me? I was free to start fresh, to rebuild my way. As the last drop of whiskey warmed my throat, I thought about the guy I used to be: trusting, clueless, too blind to see the truth until it slammed into me like a runaway train. That guy was long gone. In his place was someone tougher, wiser, forged in fire and not about to break. I leaned back in my chair, letting the cool night air wrap around me. The past was behind me, its ruins still smoking in the distance, and for the first time in ages, I let a real smile creep across my face.